All right, let's talk about a band that completely broke the mold. We're going to dive into the story of a group that started out as hardcore punks, somehow became massive hip-hop stars, and then, right at their peak, risked everything to make a creative masterpiece. This is the incredible story of the Beastie Boys. You see, to really get the Beastie Boys, you have to go way back. I mean, before the sold-out arenas and the platinum records. Because before they were legends of hip-hop, they were really just a bunch of kids making noise in New York's hardcore punk scene. And that's the key right there. This quote gets to the heart of it all. That rebellious, do-it-yourself spirit, that was their DNA. It was the foundation for everything they did, even when their music started changing in ways nobody could have predicted. So, let's go back to the beginning. Let's picture downtown New York City in the early 1980s. Gritty, creative, and buzzing with energy. That's where our story starts. And man, things move fast. In 1981, they're just kids forming a hardcore band. Just a year later, they drop this super raw punk EP. And by '83, the final lineup is set, and they're already messing around with hip-hop beats. Their evolution was incredibly quick, and it all kicked off with pure, loud, distorted punk rock. This is what made them so different, right? They didn't fit into any neat little box. They were these arty, middle-class Jewish kids, just soaking up all the culture that downtown Manhattan had to offer. Even their name, with the BB initials, was a shout-out to the legendary hardcore band Bad Brains. They were a total product of that unique time and place. But here's where the story takes a massive turn. There was this older NYU student who would sometimes DJ for them, and this guy, well, he was about to start his own record label. That student was Rick Rubin, and the label was Def Jam.
And that partnership would lead to something absolutely explosive. It was their ticket to the mainstream with the album Licensed to Ill, and it was complicated.
And yeah, that student was the one and only, the legendary producer, Rick Rubin. His first impression of the band? Well, it wasn't exactly love at first sight. But he really quickly saw past that bratty exterior and got what they were about. They had this sharp, smart Alex sense of humor. And that connection turned into one of the most important partnerships in music history.
And what a partnership it was. In 1986, their debut album, Licensed to Ill, did something that no one had ever done before. It became the very first rap album to ever hit #1 on the Billboard chart. I mean, this wasn't just a hit record. It was a total cultural earthquake. It brought hip-hop crashing into suburban living rooms everywhere. But all that success, it came with a pretty big price tag. They were touring with Madonna, they were global superstars, but they were also getting trapped inside this villainous frat boy character that they grew to hate almost immediately. You know, in later years, they actually apologized publicly for some of the lyrics from that time. It was a huge moment of growth for them. They were famous, but they weren't being themselves. So what do you do when you're one of the biggest bands in the world, but you can't stand what you've become? Well, if you're the Beastie Boys, you burn it all to the ground and start over. After a really nasty split with Def Jam and Rick Rubin, they set out to completely reinvent their sound and their image. And this right here just shows you what a massive left turn they took. They followed up a multi-million-selling smash hit with this incredibly dense, sample-heavy album that was a commercial flop. They basically gambled their entire career just for the chance to be creative again. The secret was the sound. They teamed up with producers called the Dust Brothers, and they just threw out the old playbook. Instead of simple rock riffs, they dove headfirst into this style called sampledalia. Think of it like a sound collage, a sonic mosaic built from tiny pieces of over 100 other songs. They were sampling everyone from the Beatles to Johnny Cash to James Brown. Nobody in hip-hop had ever heard anything like it. So the album bombed. A lot of people just wrote them off, thought they were done. But then a really funny thing started to happen. The album became this slow burn. Critics, other musicians, and real hardcore fans started listening, and then listening again, closer, and they began to realize the absolute layered genius of what the Beasties had created. And today, Paul's Boutique is often called the Sgt. Pepper of hip-hop. It's considered their true artistic masterpiece and a huge landmark in music production. Even Chuck D from Public Enemy, one of the greats, admitted it had the best beats. They didn't just make an album, they basically wrote a whole new instruction manual for how music could be put together. So, when you put it all together, from those punk rock beginnings to becoming architects of a new sound, what's the big takeaway? Their legacy isn't really about one single sound. It's about their total fearlessness in mashing everything together. On their later albums, they actually picked up their instruments again, blending punk,
hip-hop, funk, and even jazz into a style that was just them. They proved that taking a huge creative risk could lead to something even bigger and way more authentic.
And this honor, it was really a recognition of that entire wild ride. And their evolution went beyond the music, too. Adam Yauch became this incredibly passionate activist, starting the Milarepa Fund and organizing the Tibetan Freedom Concerts. Tragically, he passed away from cancer in 2012, the very same year they were inducted. The other two members retired the Beastie Boys name right then and there, cementing a legacy of constant, fearless change.
The story of the Beastie Boys is proof that the answer is a definite, loud, resounding yes. And their career kind of leaves you with a question, doesn't it? What rules are you following in your own life that are just waiting to be broken?